yeah. Well, if you look out your window outside, you'll see it's getting dark. So time
Oh yeah.
to, which would be really helpful actually, because we're about to talk about our spooky games for October. So
Oh
the
yeah, yeah.
fact
Nice.
the fact that this is a rare recording during daylight hours is horribly
The
off.
first.
Yeah, horribly off message, but I'm sure we can change it in post production, put some bats around or some other nonsense. As I said, we've been talking about darker games really since we started this podcast, and given that it is spooky season, it is October. What other excuse do we need than to kind of run through some of our favourite, not necessarily best, because some of them maybe are sort of personal memories, but some of our favourite spooky or ghoulish or ghostly games. James, do you want to kick off with something from your list?
Yeah, I'm just going to mention a few things, but we're not going to talk about them in detail because we've
Yeah.
talked about them much in the past. So, obviously, The Last of Us is a great series that has got zombies and stuff in it. So, obviously, it's got lots of jump scares as things creep out on you, and it's very horrifying the whole way through. So, again, great game. We've already talked about Still Wakes the Deep, which, again, lots of jump scares, lots of monsters coming out of you that look like big spiders on a rig in the middle of nowhere. So, again, quite scary and not the kind of game you want to play in the dark on your own. We've talked in the past a lot about Alan Wake as well, which, again, has lots of horror elements in it. There's lots of monsters that come at you that don't like torchlight. There's lots of games where monsters don't like torchlight or fires, bizarrely. If only it was true in the real world. So again, Alan Wake 2 is another game that both of us are very keen on playing. It's probably in both of our libraries, or if not, we're saving the money for it, one of the two. There's also a new DLC announced at State of Play as well, called The Lake, I think. So again, Alan Wake, another recommended game that's very scary in parts. But I'm not going to talk about any of them. I'm going to start by talking about one I mentioned earlier, which is Little Nightmares 2. So that was on PlayStation Plus at the moment for spooky season. And it's pretty good. We've talked in the past about two games, Limbo and Inside, which are both made by the same company, I believe. Giles is much better at that kind of stuff than me. They were both quite creepy in kind of a platform type way where you made your way through a level and it was all quite dark and mysterious and suspenseful. A Little Nightmares, I'm only a couple of hours in, but it's quite a similar type game in that it is very suspenseful and very dark and mysterious. So you play a character, which I assume is a small boy. He's got a bag on his head at the start, so you can't really tell what he is, or she is, or it is. Maybe it's neither, who knows. And he moves through, or she, or it, moves through some levels with a bag on the head, jumping over stuff, climbing up things, swinging on stuff. Usual platformy type stuff, but it's all very dark. And then he gets to a house, and gets in the house, and there seems to be some dead people in the house, which is a bit odd. They've got sort of clay, knackered faces, very odd. And then he finds a little boy sort of locked into a room out the back. So he teams up with the little boy, helps the little boy to escape, and then they travel on together through various adventures, including being shot by a farmer who also looks like he might be dead, but who knows? Lots of dead things, lots of farmers, lots of guns. And they generally run around lots, escaping from things in a dark, scary way. So it's a really atmospheric game already. Like I said, I'm only 2 hours in, so I've not seen the whole thing. But it's definitely my kind of thing. It's mysterious, suspenseful, dark, odd, kind of disturbing, and perfect for Halloween season, I think. So the kind of game you can enjoy with friends or on your own in the dark on a massive screen. Go for yours, 1G. What's your fancy?
Yeah, no, I'd recommend both the Little Nightmares games. And there's a really weird situation going on around that franchise or that development team, because I think the people who developed it have now got a new game due out quite soon, which looks very much like Little Nightmares. Can't remember the name, apologies, listeners, but it was in a previous State of Play or showcase. So they've gone off and done something else because the publishers have gone with a different team to make Little Nightmares 3. So if you do enjoy one or two, you might have two choices quite soon to follow up. But yeah, some genuinely terrifying stuff in Little Nightmares 2. Definitely not fun for all the family. But also it's that sort of Tim Burton-ish kind of spookiness, isn't it? It's kind of everything's a bit off kilter and kind of weird, and no, recommend it. Yeah, I mean, I thought quite a lot about this. It's what is sort of spooky, whether it's kind of that fun kind of Halloween-y type spookiness, or whether it's genuine terror and horror. And on the second stream, the thing that came to mind was the only game that I've actually stopped playing because I was too scared, which is Alien Isolation. Genuinely terrifying experience, which I would give as a recommendation, but also, like I said, I did stop because I just found it too stressful. You mentioned Still Wakes the Deep earlier, and in Still Wakes the Deep, there is some moments where you are sort of hiding from a monster, essentially, aren't you? And trying to stay hidden and quiet. The difference in Alien Isolation is that the alien is very much based on the one in the movie. The first movie is super intelligent and will happily come along and open up the locker that you're hiding in, or look under the bed that you're hiding under, and will then kill you. So you have to hide and hold your breath and distract and run and all kinds of things that are genuinely terrifying. It is brilliant. It's an excellent sense of place. The ship that you are on, different ship to the one in the first film or any of the subsequent films. There's a connection with Ripley. I think it's her daughter, potentially. Again, I think that's in the synopsis rather than a spoiler, but I might be wrong because I played a while ago. And just highly recommend it. And it came back to memory quite recently because the new Alien film, Alien Romulus, the director clearly also loved Alien Isolation and has talked a lot about how he was inspired by the game to make a new Alien film. And there's a few nice little Easter eggs in the film, which he's highlighted in some interviews. Probably read the interview after you've seen the film, though, because it's a bit of a spoiler. But yeah, so it was probably the best and worst horror experience I have had. Back to you, James.
Again, it's another game I've got in my PlayStation library I never actually played so far. So
yeah,
you've put me off completely now, so I shall never open that one.
It's fine.
That's one knocked off the list. I'll go with Until Dawn because it's a different type of game. Again, I'm sure most people have played Until Dawn. It's also coming out on PlayStation 5 in a remastered version, and probably PC around nowish. It might already be out, who knows? So,
you're right.
Yeah, there's a weird noise in the background.
There's a helicopter over me, which it sounds like the microphone may be able to pick that up. But listeners, don't worry. If they're coming for me, I will tell you, and I'll make a run for it. Otherwise, I'm sure.
I thought you were dropping in some Halloween sound effects to accompany my... How bizarre. That's generally scary. Anyway, yeah, Until Dawn. So it's kind of a movie adventure type game. It feels like you're in a movie. So there's a number of characters who are going on an adventure. So they're sort of going to a place up in the mountains, out of the way, in a sort of a log cabin, to have some fun time as a group of four. And there's some famous actors in it. Like, I think Hayden Panettiere is in it, for example. And they all look exactly like their characters, weirdly. So if you Google the voice actors, they all look identical to their characters in the game. Fun little side bit there. Always look it up. Always fun with those kind of games. And yeah, things go wrong a bit because as a group, you go off in different places. You get chased by certain things happen. You have to make some decisions as to what you're going to do. There's lots of those quick time things where you have to press the right button at the right time so you don't fall off a mountain or get hit by something or get attacked by something else, or if you manage to run away fast enough. So really good game, very atmospheric. Again, it feels like you're being part of a movie script, and all those kind of games are very similar. I think there's another one called The Quarry and The Man of Medan we've talked about before in one of the early episodes. So the Dark Anthologies trilogy, all those kind of games, very similar, all by the same company, all have a similar kind of feel to them, and are very interesting. Lots of jump scares. It feels very atmospheric. If you put your headphones on and watch it in the dark, then you feel like you're sort of part of it, and it's really interesting. And the idea of the game is to try and save as many characters as possible. So you're trying to get as many of the group of visitors to the end of the game as possible. And every now and again, the narrator pops up to say how you're getting on and to say some scary things about life. And at the end, you've done really well if you save everyone, but I think it's pretty much impossible to save everyone, so someone's always going to die somewhere. And it depends on how you play each character and how you build relationships and what you say and where you go and what you do. as to which characters survive and which ones don't. So very much recommended. If you've not played it on PlayStation 4 or anywhere else, get the PS5 version. It'll probably be on PlayStation Network soon. Probably. Who knows? Great game. Next one for you, Jay.
Nice. When you said the commentator comes up to the narrator says scary things about life, as sort of 40-something people, that's things like your mortgage interest rate is about to double, or you're never going to find a job that truly satisfies you. Is that the sort of thing, or am I getting the wrong end of the stick?
No, very similar.
Terrifying.
I think wasn't it the voice actor that did that when they died recently as well? Maybe, can't remember. Google it. It's very good though. Very atmospheric. Adds to it.
Sounds like fun. Yeah, no, good stuff. I was gonna. We both, I think, got quite long lists, and we've already had quite a long episode. So, I'd just say the Resident Evil series is kind of an easy one, but also I don't know. I've had a mixed experience of Resident Evil. There's a couple of times where it's genuinely scared me. I think of the dogs jumping through the windows in Resident Evil 1. I think that was something that anyone who's played that game probably took a little bit of a leap or a streak at. But mostly it's a kind of quite campy horror, very slow shuffling zombies, and the threat and the danger coming from your terrible turning circle or inability to reload or lack of typewriter ribbons. But yeah, so I've sort of dabbled in Resident Evil, and it just reminded me again that I've got three games, Resident Evil games, that I own or have access to that I haven't played. And that's as many Resident Evil games as I have played. So I obviously like the series, but have not done a very good job of keeping up with it. So Resident Evil 1 I've played in two forms, original and a sort of remaster. Really enjoyed Code Veronica, which was a well underloved version, which was on the Dreamcast, which is probably why it was less well played, less well thought of, but that was the first one that had 3D backgrounds, and I really enjoyed that game. And then Resident Evil 4, which is a lot of people's favourite ever game. I also really enjoyed it. I haven't played the remake. Don't know if I want to, but remake of 2 and 3, because I haven't played the originals, are definitely on my list. As is 7, which was the first complete sort of change of direction, first person, apparently very scary, and continued the story in Resident Evil Village, and probably the 9th one if and when it comes out. So yeah, a couple of Resident Evil experiences for me: jump scares, some classic kind of shuffling zombie horror, and then the horror of the backlog, which surely for any gamer is the scariest thing that anyone can experience, James.
Yeah, I was going to say Resident Evil 7 was the one that was on PlayStation VR as well. So that was generally scary. Between the chronic nausea of walking around to get to the house in the first place, once you got into the house and saw the sort of evil weirdo family sitting in there, that was quite scary, because you sort of felt like you were actually trying to run away from them, which wasn't quite recreated in the game itself.
Yeah, how much of it did you play in VR? Because the whole game was playable, wasn't it?
The entire game was VR, yeah. I played very little of it because I felt nauseous throughout. So between trying to run away from people, it was abject terror and chronic nausea combined into a package.
Yeah, because I was going to say, because I briefly owned the PSVR, the first one, and I did have Until Dawn Rush of Blood. I don't know if that was a freebie or how I got hold of it, but I had that game as well as a Stranger Things demo. And horror in VR is a whole other level of terrifying, isn't it? So yeah, I don't have a headset now, so I wasn't going to talk about those. But thinking about it, yeah, VR is a scary way to experience these things.
Yeah, I had Rush of Blood as well, and again very atmospheric, but again nausea through the roof. But yeah, Sarah enjoyed it because she didn't get nausea from it, but I kept getting nausea. Although it's not so bad on the PSVR 2, interestingly. Right, so I'll talk about one more properly, and then I'll just give a few honourable mentions to wrap up later on. So Costume Quest, Joshua really enjoyed. So we played that a couple of years ago on the Xbox, probably, because that's what he mainly plays on. And you start off with two children going sort of trick-or-treating for Halloween, collecting candy, because it's in America, obviously, or sweets for the UK listeners, if you don't know what candy is. And as you're walking around, then bad things happen. And instead of trying to save Christmas, you're now trying to save Halloween from the evils of a dentist. So, yeah, the dentist, can't remember what his name is, Oral, isn't he? Orel. And for some reason, he had a bad Halloween experience as a child. So as an adult, he decided to stop Halloween and stop candy because it's bad for your teeth, obviously.
Makes sense.
So you sort of time travel a bit. You go into the future and you see him having taken over the city and everything's about this dentist and the cleanliness of teeth. And you're trying to somehow, using your time travel and various costumes, which you can purchase or find, you take on various powers, you can do different things. And in the end, the aim is to defeat the dentist, which is the final baddie monster. And it then saves Halloween back in the present because he hasn't taken over the world and you've made him happier so he doesn't feel so bad about Halloween. So it's an interesting concept. It is a proper Halloween game because it's based around Halloween, the time of year. There's proper trick-or-treating. There's Halloween costumes to wear. Everything is like pumpkins everywhere until you get to the future whereby there's no mention of Halloween or candy at all because it's been taken over by this evil dentist who's not really evil, bless him. So great game. Very much recommended. It's Joshua's kind of game. He played through the whole thing. We did it together. Lasted a good few hours, played it over a couple of weeks. And a really, really good game. Very sweet. Obviously aimed at children, so it's not got anything violent in it, no swear words, no bums and buggers. So that's good. And very entertaining game for the family, but also a bit spooky because it's got cutesy Halloween costumes and scenes in it. So very much recommended.
Nice. Yeah, that seems more in keeping with the sort of the fun version of Halloween that I think a lot of families enjoy this time of year. Certainly, having been in America, seeing people get into it in mid-September was quite alarming. But one house we walked past when we stayed in the same location for a couple of days, there were some pumpkins the first day, then couple of figures appeared the next day, and then I dread to think just how Halloweeny that house was going to be after another 5 weeks or something of building up to it. But clearly, yeah, kids who enjoy that sort of thing, and it sounds like a great choice. Yeah, I think so. You mentioned wrapping up. I'll wrap mine up. Just sort of rounding up a group of older games that sort of touch on the theme. I mean, I'm going to be a technically here, but technically, I guess Pac-Man, given the ghosts, and you can be chased around a maze and ghosts, and then you can turn the tables. Obviously, that was the joy of Pac-Man, wasn't it? That you could turn the tables on the ghosts, take one of the fruit, and then chase them around as well. So that's always good if your kids are scared of ghosts and ghouls. You can show them that there's no need to be afraid. Just eat your fruit and vegetables, kid. Great message, or candy in your case. Also reminded me then of Ghosts and Goblins, or rather I looked up Ghosts and Goblins because I was convinced it was called Ghouls and Ghosts, and that was because apparently Ghouls and Ghosts was a version of the series on the Super Nintendo back in the day, and obviously as a mature young person, I loved that game because it was spooky and my sort of thing, a kind of side-scrolling platformer really with a bit of sort of fighting. But mainly because when you got hit, you were a knight and you lost your armor and had to run around in your pants, which, obviously now I'm mature, grown up, and don't find that sort of thing hilarious. Actually, maybe I do. But back then, it was the funniest thing I think I'd ever seen, ever, at the time. So just going back in time, a couple of classics, and also a shout out to a very obscure game called Gabriel Knight, The Beast Within, which was one of those. Do you remember when a lot of games wanted to be movies and were sort of full motion video? Gabriel Knight was a sort of detective or an investigator, and there were werewolves and stuff. And it was just a really bygone era, or thought it was a bygone era of gaming. But just because you mentioned Until Dawn and The Quarry and everything else, I thought maybe things do go around in circles. So, yeah, if anyone's listening and enjoyed Gabriel Knight, hit me up. I'd love to reminisce.
I think I also remember a game called Phasmagoria, which seemed to come on like 7 or 8 different DVDs.
Yeah.
And it was a completely movie-based game. Bizarre. Long time ago.
Excellent.
Yeah, just to wrap my bits up, very quickly, I played a couple of little games this morning. I looked at the sort of top 50 list of horror/spooky games. So I thought I'd give a couple of them a go. So I did this morning. So I played Evil Within, started that one off. That's pretty grim.
Yeah.
You turn up at
More
like a medical.
psychosis.
Yeah, turn up at a medical facility and everyone's dead. And then you get attacked and you find yourself hung upside down on a hook, bleeding, surrounded by bodies. And then this geezer comes in with a chainsaw and starts trying to hack at you and you're running away from him. My word. So that was interesting. So Evil Within, I recommend if you like being surrounded by gore and chased by people with chainsaws. Who doesn't? I tried Soma this morning as well. Interesting game. So I don't know if you've ever played Soma or not, but weirdly, you have had a car crash, so you've got some brain damage, your brain keeps bleeding, and you're minutes away from a fatal brain bleed if something bad happens, so you haven't got long to live. And you agree to take part in some research facility where they're monitoring brains so they can do a treatment program based on your brain condition. And you get there, you're having your brain scan, and then suddenly the lights go off, and you appear in an underwater research facility where robots have taken over. So there's got a bit of Still Wakes You Deep to it, and then you're in a facility and you're walking around in an atmospheric location being chased by monsters. So again, very, very much jump scary, but I played a couple of hours this morning and that was fascinating as well. Just the last few little ones, Joshua's games, I mentioned his ones. He plays a game called Doors on Roblox. So you have to get through 100 doors. So you go through the doors in numerical order, but there's monsters that appear in certain locations and you have to hide in cupboards and dart around and look at them and kick them and do different things. And there's lots of characters at the same time. It's really good fun, and Joshua loves doors, so that's very mysterious and Halloween-y. Ghostbusters, the video game we played together last Halloween because we wanted to play a Halloween game, so we played it on Xbox, and it's good. It's quite realistic. I was going to say it's quite authentic to the original film. So there's 4 of you waving around with dreams of stuff, and there's Slimer and ectoplasm and all that stuff. So that's quite interesting. I'd recommend Ghostbusters for a good little bit of fun. And finally, obviously, Minecraft Dungeons. I love Minecraft Dungeons. Joshua loves Minecraft Dungeons. And obviously every character in it is Halloween themed. So you've got robots and pumpkins and exploding things and witches and all kinds of, and skeletons that you kill with your swords as you race around Minecraft Dungeons. So again, a perfect Halloween game for those of you with children. The end.
Excellent. Thank God we finished on a slightly later note, because when you were talking about Evil Within, it's like, especially those of you who listen as you're drifting off to sleep, I really hope you sleep well tonight with that description of sheer terror. Excellent. Well, let us know what you think, if you've got a particular favourite that we left off, if you agree or disagree with anything on our list. As we said, these are some of our favourites, rather than necessarily the best. I'd definitely throw Gabriel Knight and probably Phantasmagoria not as examples of highbrow quality gaming, but in both cases, good spooky fun.